Mr. P.N. Ganga Mohan, guest speaker of today's webinar, Mr. A. Sunil Kumar, Honorable Secretary TMA, Mr. N. Nahas, MC Member TMA, and members of TMA. Good evening to all. It gives me great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome to this seminar on a peep into few blind spots of organizational growth on behalf of Trivandrum Management Association. We are privileged that we have with us Mr. Ganga Mohan, who worked in corporates for 35 years, mostly in pharmaceutical and healthcare industry in India and abroad. Former Executive President, Agape Diagnostics Limited, presently has his own consulting company, CoachPoint, for coaching through assessment-based coaching. He will enlighten us the concept of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which organizations realized and accepted now. Adaptability is one of the prime success factors in responding to events in each of the four VUCA categories. Now, let me welcome our dynamic president, Mr. Rajesh Jha, to this webinar. I now welcome Mr. Ganga Mohan, guest speaker of today's topic, who is a renowned expert in the area of making organizations successful and leaders more effective. I also welcome our very active secretary, Mr. A. Sunil Kumar, and MC member, Mr. N. Nahas. I welcome one and all who are attending this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I welcome President for the President's address of the day.
Good evening to all of you.
Sir, we are not able to hear you.
Please unmute.
President, we are not able to.
Please
President,
unmute.
we are not able to hear you, sir.
Rajesh ji, we cannot hear you.
Hello, sir. We are not able to hear you, sir. I think there is some connection problem. Maybe he is not able to. His camera, both his camera as well as voice is muted. So I think we will wait for a while, and if he is not able to join, we will continue with our other items of agenda.
In the meantime, may I mention?
Yeah.
Oh, he's back. He's back. Okay, we couldn't hear you, so I thought I'll fill the gap.
Yeah, okay, Ragashri. So I was saying that in between the screen went blank and I was trying to reconnect. So we have a very interesting person today evening, and the topic is equally interesting. All of us realize in the organization that there are many blind spots, but we hardly talk about it. And 35 long years of, the keen observation that he has about observing the blind spots and how to take care of that, and then coaching the industries, how to maximize the competency of the manpower and utilize the people. In fact, that is the main differentiator between a very successful company and not so successful company. So it will be really very interesting to hear Mr. Ganga Mohan. And now I would request Sunil to introduce the speaker of the evening, and then we would love to hear Mr. Ganga Mohan speak.
Thank you, sir. It's great, really a great privilege to introduce a speaker like Mr. Ganga Mohan. As Mr. Ganga Mohan earlier telling to us that he longed to become an army officer, and the destiny brought him to the corporate industry. There also from a small town of Thrissur. I believe that he belongs to Thrissur. From a small town of Thrissur, he made a humble beginning and rose to the rank of the major corporates in the pharma industries of the country. So he is having a very impressive CV and a very impressive track record of making organizations work. So I will tell a brief about his experience over the next few minutes. Mr. Ganga Mohan has worked in corporates for over 35 years, mostly in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry in India and in international business. He has occupied many senior positions for over 2 decades, and he has been associated with reputed companies like Raptecos, Bretanco, IPCA laboratories, and he has widely traveled more than 40 countries in the world. He was consultant for the international business and later the executive president of Agape Diagnostic Limited, one of the leading firm in healthcare sector. Now he is currently active in his favorite activity of coaching leaders through an assessment-based coaching model through his coaching and consulting company, CoachPoint. He is based out of Mumbai and Kochi. He is a mentor of many SME business in Mumbai as well as in Kochi. And he has been guiding many businesses and organizations in his career. So now I welcome, he is going to tell us a very important side of the organization, which we generally miss from his viewpoint. So now I welcome Mr. Ganga Mohan for his thoughts on the subject. Welcome, Mr. Ganga Mohan.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the warm introduction.
Thank you.
Can I start sharing my screen, please? So good evening to you all and welcome to my presentation. It's a privilege, it's a pleasure, or it's an honor for me to be with you all and to make a presentation here. And thanks a lot to Andhra Management Association for inviting me. Thanks a lot. You know, when we discussed about this, what is to be presented, or when I was thinking about this, I was quite sure that I'm going to talk about human resource, in the sense the people. But what exactly should I speak? What are the points that I will have to highlight? And what should I give as a take-home message to those participants who participate in this session? Those were the things that I was debating in my mind. And I came to this point that I will take up this topic, which is a peep into the blind spots of organization growth. You know, when I talk about this topic, let me just first bring everyone onto the same page. I used 2 terms here. One is the blind spots, and the second one is organization. What I had in my mind when I wrote this particular one and specifically mentioned this point, blind spots. It's very simple if I just put it across in a different way. Suppose you are walking into my house. We're walking into my house and you find that there is an umbrella in one corner of my house. And you ask me, Ganga Mohan, what is this umbrella? Do you use it every day? I look at it as if I'm seeing it for the first time in all probability. And I'll say that, oh God, I didn't even notice that there is an umbrella like this here. It is something that if you ask me, do I know? Yes, I know. But do I know? No, I don't know. It was a blind spot. Look at it from an organization's perspective. In your own organizations, you can see there will be quite a few of these umbrellas in some corners of the living room, meaning various things which many people do. And if you ask them, do you know that? He said, I know. But do you really know? No, I don't know. So those are the blind spots, one. The second one is that the blind spot, what I'm referring to is simply that I don't know that I don't know. I don't know that I don't know. In the course of our presentation, you will know what it is. I don't know that I don't know at all. Those are the two things that I'm going to cover in this presentation. Second thing is the word organization. Organization, what I mean here, it can be a commercial organization. It can be a, say, an NGO. It can be a PSU. It can be anybody. But what I have not looked into, or what I have not considered in this presentation, one is I have not considered those corporations like, call it Google, call it Tata, such huge ones. Because normally what we come across are those organizations where, let's say that is a range, it's a huge range, like people strength of around 300 to 500 to maybe 3,000 to 5,000 people. Such organizations. And all these organizations or all these cases, you can see quite a lot of blind spots. You can see a lot of blind spots in all these places. And all what I'm trying to do at this stage today is to take you to some of those blind spots. And the purpose of this presentation, which I'll come at the end of it also, is that my purpose is to stimulate a thinking in your mind to relate it with you and your own activities so that you can get connected with it and see for yourself what it means to you. So the whole purpose is to stimulate the thinking in you. And the second part is that, let me put it in a different way again. We all know that English language has only 26 letters. I write English with this 26 letters. Shashi Tharoor also writes with this 26 letters. He doesn't invent the 27th letter in English. But my English is different from that of Shashi Tharoor, because it is the way that you sequence something which will eventually give you a meaning in a particular context. All these 26 letters we have learned in the KG classes. And all these 26 letters can play magic if you write it in a way, like I give an example that O, D, and G. If I write like this, it doesn't make any sense. Those three letters, if I put it as D, G, O, and D, it gives a meaning, it gives an emotion. If you put it reverse, D, O, and G, it gives a different meaning and different emotion to the context. If you know how to align with the context, then you find that it makes sense. The point that I'm coming up here is that whatever I'm going to tell you, it may not be something that nobody has ever heard in your life. It's all mostly simple things, very simple things like this 26 alphabets, 26 letters in English. Or it is like what we call it as, like if you know the numbers 1 to 9 and 0, but if you want to transact online, you have to put it in the way the OTP is sent to you. Knowing those numbers is not going to help you. That's precisely the angle with which you have to look into my presentation. It is not that what you know, but how to sequence it to the context is what you have to look into, and you can align with you and your way of working your company or whatever you are into. Here I have two perspectives. The first perspective is that of an individual, the blind spots of an individual. The second one is that of an organization. It's quite common that we can see quite a lot of blind spots with regard to individuals, and you can see a lot of blind spots with organizations. It's very common. Like, if you look at it, I know that somebody asked me this question when I was talking to a reasonably big company. I was talking to him about training, and he said, Ganga Mohan, the problem is that it's a private company, the problem is that if I train them, they leave. I said, are you trying to tell me that? What if I train them and they leave? He said, yes. Then I asked him, what if you don't train them and they remain? Which is better? Which is bad? It's a blind spot. This man is thinking about assuming if we train, to give a small example, if I train 10 people, if out of this 5 people leave, he is worried about those 5 people leaving. And the word that he used is, I don't spend on training. He doesn't consider that as an investment. It's a blind spot in an organization. He doesn't understand that if these 5 people who remain there and the 6th man coming in will join a group of 5 trained people, otherwise he will be carrying mostly the dead woods. But he will not understand that. He'll be more worried about those people who leave. I said, it is not a question of people leaving. Ask yourself this question: who are the people leaving you, and why are they leaving? And in all probability, one of the reasons why the people leave will be because you are not giving them opportunities for them to develop and grow. It happens. So in organizations, there are quite a few blind spots, which it is important that the top people, that is the leadership team, understand that there are blind spots. And I'll put the context in, and this is the impact thereof. And I'll put the context in place. The simple thing, what I'm talking about, in what context is, tell me, is there any person in your life who has come and told you that I don't want to be a success? I want to be a total failure. I have not come across anybody. So every person wants to be successful. And the second part is that every organization wants successful people. If every person wants to be successful and every organization is looking for successful people, it's so simple. There is an absolute sync in the intentions, but it doesn't happen that way in the real world. It doesn't happen that way. The people want to be successful, organizations want successful people, but it doesn't happen that way because there are blind spots. And it's those blind spots which prevent people from being successful or becoming successful to the extent they ideally should be. And organizations, again, the same. So it's important, and look at it from this angle. Look at it from this angle, that the best of intentions still won't take you where you want to. It's important that you understand what can take you through and what are those blind spots. In this context, you can see how my presentation goes. And as I told you before, there are 2 perspectives. Let me first get into the individual's blind spots or perspectives there. An individual, it could be anybody. It can be me, somebody else. Like what I was sharing just now, that I wanted to become an army officer and cleared everything, but finally that fate would have it, I didn't get it. And I became a medical representative. And I climbed up the ladder, the career ladder, to become an executive president. Now the point is not I'm bragging, and it has no relevance here, what I became later. It has absolutely no relevance. What is important is, when I look back and I ask this question to myself, my simple question is, did I optimally use my potential? I would like each one of you to ask the same question to yourself, wherever you are in the career graph. Ask this question to yourself. Are you or were you using your best potential? Or I asked myself, was that the best I could become? Was that the best that I could become? And the obvious answer was no. I could have done much more. I could have done much more. Whatever I accomplished, yes, it is an accomplishment. That doesn't mean that that was the best I could. And that was the reason why I got into this area of coaching. Because at various stages, I found that I wished always, if I had somebody to tell me that this is your blind spot, change and then grow. And this is a small thing that you have to fine tune and then you can go up. I didn't do that. I didn't have. I had good people with me. I had good bosses with me, but then I felt that I could have done better. And I'm sure that most of these people sitting here in, let's say, those youngsters who are at the beginning of their career, maybe 3 or 5 years, look back and see. Ask yourself, today, are you using 100% of your potential? Is that the best that you can do? Or those who are in the middle, ask, what did you do and what can you do in future? And those like me who have completed the career, the corporate career or wherever, ask yourself, how can you help those people who can help the rest of the people also, so that people understand their blind spots that come up. There is relevance everywhere in this particular thing. And I was just trying to see how I can put it across to people. Well, I was fascinated seeing one specific thing about mountaineering. There was a gentleman who wanted to climb the mountain, and he climbed up the mountain and came back, and he was at the peak of the mountain. And after coming back, he was explaining this to his friend. And he said that those are the challenges and all this kind of stuff. And his friend said, you should have told me. You should have told me. I would have airdropped you there in my helicopter. This man smiled and said, conquering the peak was not a point. What I learned was what all things I faced on the way, the risks that I faced, the challenges that I faced, the uncertainties that I faced, the inadequacies that I faced. All these things, what I faced, are the ones that created all this sort of, those uncertainties or those challenges, what those things taught me, those are the things that I learned that made all the difference. It is not reaching the top. So for every individual sitting here, it is not whether you are at the top or not. It is what you learn. It is the journey that makes the difference. It's what you learn in the journey that will make you better. And to make this journey better, you got to have an idea about the blind spots that you have. And one of the things that I learned, which I learned very late in the mountaineer's language itself, is that it is not the mountains we conquer, but we conquer ourselves. What a statement. It was a late realization for me. And it was a blind spot for me. Because when we come across the challenges, when we come across all these uncertainties in my career, when I had inadequacies, all I was looking at were those challenges. I was more worried about those challenges. I was more worried about those uncertainties. I was worried about all such things. And how can a mountaineer be worried about those things where he has no control on? Has he got any control on the terrain there? Nothing. If he keeps one step above, maybe he'll come down by 10 steps. Maybe he'll fall down. So he cannot change the mountain, but he can change himself. In simple terms, something which we all know, but it is something like an umbrella in the drawing room that we find that I know it, but I don't know. The simple point is, are you aware of what you can control and what you cannot control? When we come across those challenges, we worry about those challenges where we have absolutely no control on. We don't worry about ourselves and equip ourselves so that we equip ourselves so that we conquer ourselves, our mind, where we have reasonably good control. If somebody had told me, I would have had a different perspective of many of the challenges that I had. I would have different perspective of various uncertainties that I had, risks that I had taken, different perspective of this. Ask yourself, when you see challenges, when you go through some of the hard times, do you look at that, or do you look at yourself and enabling you to become the best what you can? The answer is mostly that we look at those obstacles, and our mind gets disturbed with those obstacles. And when we get disturbed with those obstacles, we don't conquer ourselves. We try to get into that, and we find that we are completely into a set of things where we have no control on. So this was one of the blind spots that I faced. And if you ask yourself and be brutally honest, ask yourself, you will get an answer. That should stimulate a small thinking in you. And that stimulation is what I'm looking for. Now, the second question that I have is simple. Do you compete? The answer is obviously yes. I'm sure this answer is obviously yes from everyone. I do compete. But whom do you compete with? Whom do you compete with? I'll give an example outside the corporate. One of my son's friends, when he was in the school, he was put in another school where he was in the top 3 ranks. He was the top 3. Well, very well-to-do parents. They put him in that school for what reason, I don't know. After some time, they realized that there is something wrong, and they managed to get admission in a much better school. When the child reached the new school, the child was nowhere in the top 10 or 20, was far behind. He was far behind. The simple reason is it was the same syllabus, it was the same boy, but forget about that, he was nowhere there on top, he was somewhere in the bottom because he was competing with people who are not as good as him, whereas here he's competing with people who are as good or better than him. So the point is, whom are you competing with? Are you competing with others? If you're competing with others, with whom determines the benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, this was a huge blind spot for me. This was a huge blind spot for me because there is every chance that when you compete with people who are okay and you are better than them, you are comparatively better, there will be always a tendency to go into the comfort zone, and the comfort zone is the most unsafe zone. You get into that comfort zone, not realizing it's a clear blind spot, not realizing that you are not really doing well to your potential. You are not doing justice to your potential. When you find that you are not doing justice to your potential, you are degrowing. You are practically degrowing. And when you are practically degrowing, you still accept it because you don't know. And you don't know that you don't know. And that's when I said that I wish I had somebody at that time to tell me that, listen, when you are competing, compete with people who are better than you. How are you in the industry? How good are you if you have to compete with the other people in the industry? How good are you? That competition sometimes would help. But otherwise, there are many people, even today, you can see there are many people who are getting into this trap. They're getting into this trap and getting into the comfort zone and not doing well. Clear blind spot. Clear blind spot that can completely ruin the career of a person, or at least that can hinder the growth of a person's career. So what I would like to ask you to ask yourself, whom am I
Mr. Ganga, are you online?
Yes, I am very much online.
Actually, in between, I think there was some disruption.
I think my screen share is gone. Just give me a second. Can you see that now?
Yes, yes, yes. In between, we missed your voice also.
Is it? Okay, then I'll repeat.
No
So,
problem. Only in the towards the end.
fine. Okay. So what I would like each person to do right now is ask yourself, whom are you competing with? That can determine your success. That can determine your success, and that makes all the difference in your career. Now, let me ask another question. This is the most important and the most vital question that I have here. Do you compete with you? Ladies and gentlemen, this was my biggest blind spot. And when I do coaching today, I find the same thing with many people, that this is the blind spot for many people. Why are they moving to the comfort zone? It is primarily because of this, that they don't compete with themselves, they compete with others. And when you compete with others, you are practically limiting because you have no idea what is that you can do. It is something like, there's a story where two children of 7, 8 years old in a village, 7 or 8 years old in the village, they play together. One day they decided that they will go to the next village to play. They went to the next village to play, and in the next village, they were not quite clear about the place. One boy fell into a well. What can the other boy do? Naturally, he started screaming, asking for help. There was no one around to help. So this boy didn't know what to do. He continued shouting, and he went close to that. He was there at that pond, the well, and he found there was a bucket and a rope nearby. He put the bucket inside the well, asked his friend to hold on to that, and he continued asking for help, shouting for help. And nobody came to help him. There was no one. And in the meantime, he was pulling his friend out from the well. After some time, he was successful in bringing him up, and they hugged each other. The story begins here. These boys went back to their village, told their seniors that this happened. None of their seniors were ready to accept this. Everyone said that children are lying, bluffing. None of them except one person. And that one person was ready to accept this. And he said, children are not bluffing, they are right. Because he was the wisest man there, the rest of the people flocked around him and asked him, why do you say that children are not bluffing? And the simple thing what he said is that, did you hear the story? He said, yes. People said, yes, this is what happened, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. He called for help, he didn't get anything, and he pulled him out and all the stuff. He said, that is the reason why I believe. The simple thing is, when he was shouting for help, and when the whole thing was happening, there was no one around to tell this boy that he cannot do it. There was no one to tell him that he cannot do it. Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing is that There are a lot of people around us to tell us that we cannot do it. Biggest distraction. You compete with yourself. If you compete with yourself, you will not have this distraction because you're focusing on yourself. I'll give you look at this gentleman, Usain Bolt. Everyone knows him. He is the fastest on earth. Do you think he competes with the rest of the people? No, he doesn't compete with the rest of the people. If he had competed with the rest of the people, he would have not created this particular thing, which is the world record. He would have not created this world record because he was all through competing with himself. How can I be a better version of myself? His growth was not determined by the competitors that he competes with. His growth was determined by him, and he was competing with time. He was competing with himself. I remember Roger Federer's one of the videos. He says that when he was the world number one for weeks and weeks together. And he says that when I was world number one for weeks and weeks, I asked myself, how can I improve? Listen, he was world number one. And he's asking himself, how can I improve? How can I be better than what I was yesterday? He changed himself, his mental conditions. He was throwing the bat all through earlier, and those things changed, and he became somebody who was very calm in the court. And he says another statement. He says that whenever I walk to the court, I ask myself, how can I create history? How can I create history? Look at this, whom he's competing with. He's not competing with his opponent. He's competing with himself. And this was the biggest thing that I found as a blind spot of most of the people. You limit ourselves, we limit ourselves, and I did it many times. We limit ourselves with a comparative analysis. Compete with ourselves. Compete with ourselves. Your mirror image is your competitor. Can you accept this? Can you accept this point? Is it stimulating your thinking? If it is stimulating your thinking, understand that this is nothing new. There is no new concept here. It was an umbrella in the drawing room. People know many things, that people know that I have to improve. But still, this is an umbrella in the drawing room. So, be the best version of yourself. And this is extremely well said by this gentleman, John Maxwell. Fall in love with the process of becoming the very best version of yourself. If a person knows in the beginning of his career that this is what he has to do, a big blind spot is avoided. And if he internalizes this, if he absorbs this, understand his growth will be much better. And during the course of the career, that's why we say that there should be somebody all through to help you. Now here, the point is when you are the best of yourself, the ability to know what one does not know will get tested. I'm telling you, this can make a huge difference in the career of every individual. The ability to know what one does not know. We will never become complacent. We will never become a lesser version of what you can. And this is what I said when I finished my career, when I asked myself, did I do my best? No. Did I use my 100% of my potential? No. And I'm asking everyone to ask this question. Did you use 100% of your potential? The answer obviously will be no. Compete with yourself. And you should have the ability to know what does not know, what one does not know. If that's the case, you will be a different person. And I'll tell you, this is precisely that I was longing to have during my career. somebody, I wished I had someone to tell me these blind spots and take me up. Just to tell me this. These are all small things to take me up. Many occasions. Don't hesitate to take help from others. Like what I said, an umbrella in the drawing room, you cannot see, but others can. In fact, that's what I do. That's why the reason why I got into coaching, because I always feel that there are a lot of people stuck in various stages of their career, not realizing that they are stuck, not realizing what to do. A small help can make a huge difference in the career of a lot of people. And this is an interesting thing I took from, again, John Maxwell. I asked during my coaching process, I asked this question to many of the senior executives and business owners and all these people. What is that one thing you would like to change to make your company better? Recently, about a month and a half, not even a month and a half, about a month back, I was discussing with one of the very senior person in a big company, thousands of crore turnover. And I was talking about the coaching and related things. You know, I was wondering, he was trying to see that except him, rest of the things in the organization need change. But the change starts from you. The bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. So the question, normally, if you ask this question that what is that one thing you would change to make your company better, and you can get the answer that I would like to make my company better, I will change the people, I will change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things other than you. If you want to make your company better, the first thing is not to work on your people, but to work on yourself. If somebody had told me this long ago, maybe I would have seen various situations in a different way, and things would have been different. That's one of the biggest, another blind spot with senior people especially. They feel that except them, the rest of things have to be changed. Except them, the rest of things have to be changed. When you say that except you, the rest of the things have to be changed, you are keeping you away. And understand what can change. Nothing can change. Because even if you put the best of trainers and they trained the rest of the people, or you put coaches, the coaching is different from training, because coach will not teach anything. The coach will only give different possibilities for that person to become the best of himself. So even if they put the best of coaches there, understand eventually they are going to take instructions from whom? From this person. What can change? Nothing can change. So when people go up the ladder, this is one of the things that they have to understand. And they have to understand one thing, that if my company has to get better, I have to get better. Even as anybody at any level, anybody in any organization, need not be a profit-making organization, anything. Getting better is your responsibility. And if you get better, organization will get better, and the organization gets better because of you. It's good for the whole organization. And if that is the case, the organization will grow. That's precisely what happens. And here, the simple question before I close is that close in a sense, not the whole presentation. What is your greatest leadership challenge? Those in the leadership position, please ask yourself, what is your greatest leadership challenge? I didn't know this. Later, I came to know the greatest challenge is leading self. Leading self is the greatest challenge. I have interacted with people at different levels, and I have heard from many people that I'm not getting the right set of people to work with me. The simple thing is, people get attracted to a person who is in sync with them. In a scale of 1 to 10, If your leadership, your leading self is 5 and you are at 5 or 6, you cannot attract people at 7, 8. No. You change first before you change others. And this is, again, an umbrella in the drawing room. People know it, but they don't know. People know it, but they don't know. That's how it is. So what I'm coming up to is that individuals can change a lot. And there are too many blind spots. Now, I just gave you this just to stimulate your thinking. You can find from yourself that what all things can you change. Are you the best version of yourself? Fall in love with it. Fall in love with the process of making yourself the best version of yourself. Compete with yourself. Lead with yourself. You are dealing with something where you have perfect control on. As I said, Usain Bolt, when he is there in the track, he was in track number 6. When he is in track number 6, do you think he has any control on the person standing in the track number 7 or track number 5? Nothing. Why should he worry about that? That will be a distraction. Whereas he has perfect control on what he can do when he is there for the 100 meters sprint. Because he competes with himself. Do not think about things where you have no control upon. Think about things what you can control. That makes a world of difference. Now, let me move to the next part. That is the perspective of an organization. It is very interesting. I have seen people saying that in many companies, they say that I take decisions. I take decisions. I know, because I know I've been running this business for quite some time, or I have come up the ladder. I can understand. I take decisions based on what we call it as hunch. Not based on facts, not based on data. It's very common. And they think that they are right. Yes, I'm not saying they are wrong. But then for them, they don't realize that when there is data to support, they can do a lot more than what they are doing currently. This is very common that I have seen it with many of the old generation, especially the old generation. I've handled some of the family businesses. The youngsters are finding it very difficult with their earlier generation, primarily because of this. Because these people believe that there is no need for any of this technology, there is no need for any of these things. We can run the business the way we were doing. And they give some old stories. This happens. And I'll now take you just to see this part of it. To connect you, I was just trying to see what can connect you better. I'll take Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey once said that your competitors can replicate everything what you have, your products, your strategy, your supply chain, your innovations, anything, except one thing. And that one thing is the combined effectiveness of your workforce. The combined effectiveness of your workforce. The combined effectiveness of the workforce is something which nobody can take away, which clearly emphasizes the real point that people are the ones which are something much more precious than the rest. But my question to you is not that. My question to you is, who creates the combined effectiveness in an organization? Who creates this combined effectiveness? Think of it. You will understand that it's a leadership team, because they decide the priorities of an organization. They decide the goals of an organization. They decide the pace of growth of an organization. They decide what the risks they should take for the organization. Everything, A to Z, everything they decide. And they decide whether the leadership, as you go up, whether you have to manage people or managing tasks. A blind spot. I'll give you an example. If a person walks, if you are the manager and if a person, one of your team members comes to you and tells you that I have to leave 1 hour early today evening because I have to take my son to the hospital, to the doctor. A leader who manages the task will immediately tell him if there is a lot of work to be completed. He will tell him that, listen, you cannot do that. You have so much to complete. I don't know. You make some other arrangements for your son, but I want you here to finish this job and go, because the leader is managing the task. On the contrary, if the leader is one who manages people, the same situation happens. Possibly one of the things that he will tell this gentleman is that, listen, can you make some other arrangement? And if he says, no, I cannot, I have to go anyway, there is no choice, I tried. That's fine, that's okay. Now, we have to complete these things. What's your suggestion? It's a solution that we are discussing. So then he will certainly say that I have told 2 of my colleagues to attend to this part of it. And if you ask him, what is the help that you want from me? And he will certainly say that these people will come to you, sir, for these sort of clarifications. If you could help him, then fine. And he will also say that I'm available on phone because I'm going to take my son, except when I'm with the doctor. Rest of the times I can clarify everything. I'm available. I'll ensure that that is completed. This is one of the things that happens because people originally, when they start, many of them, when they start their career, they manage tasks. And later on, when they come up, they manage people who manage tasks. And the shift is something which companies, organizations don't equip them with enough. They don't give that hand-holding in most of the organizations that I refer to in that particular slot. They put that person, they promote somebody. That has happened in many companies. They promote a person, they will have the policy to say whatever, but they promote a person by virtue of his good performance in a present position, and the next position will call for something else, but then the person will get a promotion. He will not know, he will be completely in the dark what to do, and he will end up doing things one step lower. He'll mess up the whole thing. Because earlier maybe he was managing tasks, and he's in a leadership position where he is not managing tasks, he's in the position where he is managing people who will manage tasks. The blind spot which people know, again, umbrella in the drawing room. People know it. It is not that people don't know. That's what Marshall Goldsmith has said. What has got you here will not get you there. People have to understand, organizations have to understand that what has got a person here will not get him there. Though it is known to people, as I said, it is an umbrella in the drawing room. People know, but people don't know, or they don't practice. And they don't find this as a priority, possibly. And my question to you is, how often do organizational leadership discuss about people as compared to tasks? Ask yourself. Ask yourself, if you are a manager, when you call a meeting, what do you speak? Each one will be different. Each meeting will be different. I understand. Ask yourself, are you managing people or are you managing tasks? A blind spot. Because I have managed tasks for long. I've managed tasks for long. Okay, I was managing people. It is not that I was not managing people, but I was not conscious about these facts. A lot of blind spots there. And in organizations, I've just created, I think there was an interruption. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, thank you. Now, this is an impact map that I have just created. This is something that I have created with my own imagination. It is not taken from any textbook. I've given two scenarios. Scenario number one is where the leadership team is one which is equipped with the ability to manage people effectively. So they manage people, and when this happens, like the example where I quoted before, when you ask a person that you cannot go, you have to finish your task and go, what do you expect from that person? Do you expect that person to involve completely in his job, or you will think about his son? If you manage people, you extract what we call it as commitment. You extract commitment. And if you don't do that, what you extract will be compliance. People will do the barest minimum to see that their job is retained. If it's a private company or if it's a public sector or wherever there is no threat to the job, they will do the barest minimum to just while away the time and go back. So to those people, if they find that there is a team, if they find that there are people who are not committing themselves, ask yourself, what can I do? Don't blame the people. In many occasions, you can see that it is your leadership that is creating that issue. It is your leadership. And if you start effectively managing people, there will be increased commitment in the organization, whereby you will have the combined effectiveness of the workforce will increase, which will eventually increase the productivity, and in private companies, the retention. Because as I said, people will remain with leaders who manage them well, and they will leave those leaders who don't manage them well, which effectively is increased revenue, growth, or increased profit, whatever way it is. It depends on the company. The second scenario is the leadership team managing tasks. And the next thing, what you see very common is pressurizing. They put pressure to see that things happen. A lot of pressure. And this, I don't say pressure is bad, as long as it is a positive pressure. But then this will be a negative pressure, just pressurizing. And when you do this pressurizing things, you get a lot of satisfaction that I have put a lot of pressure and these people have to do it. There is no choice. Effectively, you are extracting compliance instead of commitment. Extracting compliance instead of commitment, you cannot get their heart. You cannot get them completely involved in it and give that commitment and go that extra mile to give you what you are looking for. They do their barest minimum to hold things intact. Is it not happening in your organization? Ask yourself. Is it not happening, whether it is with you or somebody else in organizations? It's a blind spot. It is a blind spot. And this leads to inconsistent productivity and retention and inconsistent revenue growth, etc., etc. It goes on. I'll just share a couple of my own experiences in coaching. I was coaching a person who says that a leader in a senior position, he tells me that, listen, whatever I have to say, I'll say straight. No mincing words. I call a spade a spade. Understand, he is so frank that he is up to the level of calling it, we can call it blunt. And understand the coaching that I do with an assessment, where I do a scientific assessment, there it's the balancing factors which are important. Like if a person is very strong, like 10 out of 10 in frankness, he has to get a balance with what we call it as diplomacy. And this man said that, you don't ask me to be diplomatic, that is sugarcoating, I can't. And I asked him, sir, when you go to a meeting, do you conduct meetings? He said, yes, I call my people and conduct meetings. I said, what do you do there? He said, I go there and I'll have clear idea as to what I have to get from them. I go there and I tell them that this is what it is and this is what I expect from them. And then what happens? I asked him. He said, no, everyone agrees. Everyone agrees to this. And I said, do they have a choice? Do they have a choice not to agree? He said, why should they have the choice? He said, fine. Are you the smartest person in this room? Always. Because practically what you're doing is when you walk into the meeting room, The rest of the people sitting there, they are sitting with a shield, because what is going to come, they have no clue. And this man will come and tell the people that this is what I expect from you, and you have to do it. Understand, in the process, what you're doing is you are shutting the mouth of those people whom you pay in senior positions and put them there. You don't listen to them. They don't give you their opinions. What you're losing is in the process, a lot of good opinions, a lot of good inputs from them. And you think you know everything, and you're putting it across to them. And the next thing what you see is that you will be surrounded with people, what we call them as sycophants. You will be surrounded with people who will agree with you for no reason. Is that what you're looking for? And I said, I don't ask you to be diplomatic and sugarcoat. Then we have the coaching process where we say that how to handle the situation, leave it aside. Now, there's another case where it was the right opposite. The person, I can just relate it with you, it is easy for you to relate. Have you seen in some companies or some offices where people walk with small problems to the boss and say, sir, this is what I have, how can, then the boss will give a solution or whatever be the case. Whatever be the case, the boss will give the details and they go back. And I asked this person, what is the opinion of your people? Say that they are very happy because I am accessible and I am there for everything, and they are very happy. Understand, this was a blind spot. This was a clear blind spot for this gentleman, and that was hindering the growth of the organization. Because what happens is, he has unknowingly, in a very subtle way, he has sent a message to the people, because people have perceived it as that my boss likes me to go with some small tasks. If I don't go with some small issues, he will not like it. And I asked him, how much time do you spend with this sort of things? He said, yes, quite a lot of time. I said, why are you paying them? Why are you paying them? Because the problems of whatever they are expected to do belongs to them, not to you. You are here to make them, to develop them, to undertake that work. Don't do fishing, teach them fishing. Give them fish, teach them fishing. And in the process, the worst part of it, I'll tell you, in the worst part of it in this case is that this man will spend a lot of time with people who are below average, giving a message to those people who are really doing well, the competent people, that it doesn't make a difference to me whether you are doing well or not, because I treat everyone the same, or I help everyone and I spend half of my time there, or more than half of my time with those people. So why should the people there who are really doing well will ask this question to themselves, why should I be an A player? It doesn't make a difference whether you are an A player or a C player. Why should they remain there? This manager will have no clue why he is losing people. He will have no clue, because the reason is he's more with those people who are not good enough. And his task, his job, he is not doing well. Similarly, there are quite a lot of things which will impact the organization. So it's important that the leadership team understands what is their job, their roles, responsibilities, and the solution. One relevant solution that I can suggest, it's just one relevant solution that I know of. There will be hundreds of solutions. It's a scientific introspection for individuals. If I may ask the people sitting here, when was the last time you did a scientific introspection of yourself against your role and responsibilities? And the answer in most cases will be either I have never done it, or I have no idea whether it can be done at all. There are many ways of doing it. I do it in a particular way, where particular way means I am a licensed coach of one of the US-based companies. So I do that way, but that need not be the only one. There are many ways. But a scientific introspection will tell the person that there are many blind spots, and that will change the person, and that will accelerate his career journey. that will accelerate his success. So the point I'm trying to come up is the coach leadership as a form of people development. Develop people, they develop business. Develop people, they develop business, because these people who develop people, these executives know how to get the best out of people, thus creating a high performance culture in an organization. They get commitments from people and they ensure that the combined effectiveness of the workforce is at its optimum. So if you are a leader, make sure that you are enhancing your potential and you are coaching your people. That helping hand, give to them. That makes a huge difference to them. They will also always be thankful to you because you are coaching them to be better. You are not teaching them, you're coaching them to be their best while you work on you becoming your best through scientific introspection, if possible, or you can have your own ways. Because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Care for people, they care for you. Care for people, they care for the organization. Because people want to be successful. Every individual wants to be successful. Show them the way. And the biggest blind spot that I have seen in my life is that the lack of realization that blind spots do exist for everyone. That's an I don't know that I don't know. I had it enough in my career. That's the biggest blind spot. The lack of realization that blind spots exist for everyone. The moment you understand that there are blind spots for everyone, you start searching for your blind spots, which will change, which will prevent you from your derailment, and we will ensure that you are in the right track. An organization can grow through people, and people grow if they know how to. And organizational growth is possible simply through this, a win-win situation. A win-win situation. And my suggestion to work forward is relate to your own self and your organization. Whatever I said today, relate to your own self and your own organization. As I said in the beginning, the purpose of this presentation is not to give you a sort of single solution for everything, but the purpose is this session is meant to stimulate the thought process in each one of you. If I have succeeded in stimulating the thinking in your people, I think this session has achieved its objective. One small thing, if a person has understood and that has stimulated his thinking, and if a person thinks that I have to understand my blind spots, whatever way, that makes my evening. I leave you to work on that will get you the best out of it. All the very best. And I have just taken exactly 1 hour. All the very best, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad that it gave me this opportunity to present this topic. And I hope and pray that this has helped in stimulating the thinking of the people sitting here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Ganga Mohan. It was a really wonderful talk and insight for many of us. Because of shortage of time, we will take quickly 1 or 2 questions from the participants. So participants, if you have any questions, we will take 1 or 2 questions from the participant side. Can you please introduce yourself and raise your questions? Any questions from the side of participants?
Okay, then I have one. I wanted to understand what Mr. Ganga Mohan means by scientific introspection. Can he elaborate something on that? It is a wonderful talk, and all of us got engaged or glued to the talk. but this is one term that we would like to understand somewhat better.
Okay, the scientific assessment, what I meant in this particular thing is, it's actually what I do now. There are assessment organizations, there are many assessment organizations wherein they have this assessment, they have their own assessment methods. And I can authentically talk about the one which I am dealing with. So I'll take that as an example. I do it with a company by name Harrison Assessments. Harrison Assessment is a US-based, globally present assessment organization. What they do is that they have a questionnaire, smart questionnaire, what they call it as, but there are no questions in it practically. There are only statements. And that particular online link will be sent to that individual. The individual can go through that and do it in another, it takes about 30 to 40 minutes. There are no right answers, there are no wrong answers, there is nothing like an ideal answer. It will have just a few statements in each page. There are 18 pages there. In each page, there are a few statements, something like, I help people to achieve targets or their goal, or I like outdoor work, I like driving, or I like teaching. All positive statements. And all what you have to do is that you have to arrange in your preference, as per your preference. If it is in my case, if it is like I like teaching is the one which I like most, I'll put it on top. And I like outdoor work is the last thing that I like, I put it at the bottom. So this way there are 8 statements in each page and we arrange it. And after this 18 pages are over, then the whole set of reports come out from that. We can generate the kind of reports what are required for that. And these reports will clearly tell what this individual is exactly. An insight into that, because that report is written by him. It is practically written by him because it is based on the preferences that he has given. It is based on the interests that he has, his behavioral patterns and his interests. So the report that comes from there are some sort of reports with the graphs and all those kind of stuff, where we will see that what he is strong at for his role and responsibility, against his role and responsibility, what are those desirable qualities, traits, and what are the things which are taking him forward, what are those things which are bringing him back or hindering his growth, derailing his growth. So this part of it is a scientific assessment because it is not based on anything else. It is based strictly on a scientific assessment tool. So there are assessment tools available like this. This psychometric, yes, exactly, Wing Commander. The psychometric assessments, this is something which can really show you exactly what it is, what you are. And that will help you. And a coach is one who can seriously help you to navigate you through and make sure that you are in a much better position after the coaching. So that's a scientific assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions we have? Otherwise, we will move on to the last part of our today's session, a vote of thanks. I assume that there is no questions anymore. Thank you, Mr. Ganga Mohan. Now I invite our executive member, Sri Nahas, for delivering the vote of thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sunil Kumar sir. First of all, I express my sincere gratitude to our guest speaker, Ganga Mohan sir. He belongs to the pharmaceutical industry. I have been in the pharma industry for the last 28 years. I know how competitive this profession is, because when I joined the profession, in the first day itself, I heard the word enthusiasm. You must be enthusiastic, otherwise we cannot continue in this organization. That's much competitive. The professional competition is in the pharmaceutical structure. And once again, I tell you, he really stimulates my thought process like all. You really, we are thinking about what you talked about. You talked about the scientific introspection for the maximum utilization of our personal resources through some, as a a researcher, I know there are some psychometric theorems like SWOT theorem, strength, opportunities, weakness, and threats. We must learn about it. Certainly, we can achieve our mindset and achieve our job sector and professional sector well. Once again, I sincere thanks to our chairman, C.K. Chaitanya sir, our president, our secretary, and those who participate in this program. I express my sincere gratitude to each and everyone present here in this evening program. Thank you very much and all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Ganga Mohan. Thank you all the participants, and thank you MC members. Thank you, President. And now it's time for to close the session. Thank you all.
Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.